Here's the figure that should stop you cold, according to C.E. Hooper's telephone rating service, which measured what Americans were actually listening to that night. The Mercury Theater on the air pulled in a rating of roughly 2%. 2%. That means somewhere around 98% of active radio listeners that night weren't tuned to Welles at all. They were listening to NBC's The Chase and Sanborn Hour, the wildly popular ventriloquist show starring Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. This wasn't a broadcast that gripped the nation in real time. It was a niche program, on the radio, on a Sunday night, competing against one of the most popular shows in America. So where did the millions panicking number actually come from? It traces back to a single source, a 1940 study by psychologist Hadley Cantrill, called The Invasion from Mars. Cantrill estimated about 6 million people heard the broadcast, that 1.7 million believed it was real news, and 1.2 million were frightened or panicked. Cantrill even noted that many of these listeners had tuned in late, missing the opening disclaimer, because NBC happened to cut to a commercial around 8:12 p.m., right when CBS was airing Carl Phillips's terrifying live report from Grover's Mill. Bad timing, not mass hysteria, explains a lot of the confusion. But here's the catch: modern researchers found, Cantrill's study itself was flawed. His sample was statistically skewed toward people who were already prone to anxiety and distress in the first place, which meant his numbers grossly overstated how widespread the panic actually was. And when historians later checked Metropolitan Police, hospital, and morgue records from that night, they found 0 verified deaths connected to the broadcast. No stampedes. No confirmed suicides. None of it holds up. So if the panic wasn't nearly as big as we've always been told, who decided to tell us it was? That's where the story gets genuinely fascinating, because the people who built this myth weren't radio executives. They were radio's biggest rival. In the late 1930s, American newspapers were locked in a brutal fight with radio over advertising dollars. Radio was newer, faster, and increasingly the first place people went for breaking news, and print publishers saw it as an existential threat to their business. So the morning after the broadcast, newspapers across the country seized on isolated, scattered incidents of panic and blew them into a national catastrophe narrative. The New York Times ran, "Radio listeners in panic, taking war drama as fact." The Boston Globe went even further, "Radio play terrifies nation, thousands flee homes," claiming nationwide stampedes and clogged highways. The framing wasn't really about protecting the public, it was about proving that radio was reckless, irresponsible, and dangerously unregulated, while newspapers were the responsible, trustworthy alternative. This sensationalized coverage worked exactly as intended. It transformed a small, localized misunderstanding into a sweeping cultural myth, one so effective it survived for over 80 years, repeated in classrooms and documentaries long after anyone fact-checked it. And it didn't just shape public opinion. It triggered something much bigger, a federal investigation that could have ended Orson Welles' career before it really started. The press backlash got the attention of federal regulators almost immediately. The FCC launched an investigation into CBS to determine whether broadcasting laws had been violated. CBS President William Paley moved fast, publicly apologizing and assuring regulators it would never happen again. Welles himself appeared at a press conference the very next morning, visibly shaken, insisting he never intended to deceive anyone. Despite the public outcry, and calls from some in Congress for strict government censorship of radio scripts, the FCC ultimately issued no fines and revoked no licenses. The Radio Act of 1927 and the Communications Act of 1934 simply didn't allow for direct government censorship of programming content. So instead, the industry policed itself. CBS and the National Association of Broadcasters voluntarily banned the use of simulated breaking news bulletins inside fictional dramas going forward, and mandated repeated, clear disclaimers throughout any program using a realistic, documentary-style format, a rule that, in many ways, still echoes through broadcasting standards today. And for the people at the center of all this chaos? This single night didn't end their careers. It built them. Orson Welles genuinely believed, in the immediate aftermath, that this broadcast would destroy his career. Instead, the notoriety did the opposite. RKO Pictures handed him an unprecedented contract with full creative control, which led directly to Citizen Kane in 1941, a film many consider the greatest ever made. Howard Koch, the writer who scrambled to finish the script in days, used the attention to land a contract with Warner Brothers, where he later co-wrote Casablanca. John Houseman, the Mercury Theatre's co-founder, went on to become a major Hollywood producer and helped establish the drama division at Juilliard. Even the supporting cast and crew, Paul Stewart, Ora Nichols, Frank Ray Dick, Kenny Del Mar, Ray Collins, carried that night's expertise into lasting careers in film and television. In other words, the disaster that newspapers swore had wrecked radio's credibility actually launched some of the most important careers in 20th century American film and theater. Now, let's go back to where we started. That lost, unedited recording. Because once historians finally got their hands on it, the forensic differences between it and the tape you've actually heard are stranger than you'd expect. When historians laid the original Presto lacquer discs side by side with the 1968 Library of Congress tape, three specific differences stood out. First, the station break. The original discs preserve a full 15 seconds of silence, proof the broadcast followed standard FCC clock rules. That silence was edited out of the public tape, which is part of why so many listeners claim they missed the disclaimer. The timing on circulating copies doesn't even match what actually aired. Second, the blackened hand line. On the public tape, there's a sudden, disguised skip. On the original disc, it's smooth and complete, revealing that the public version had been quietly patched to hide damage on the master recording. Third, and most strikingly, the April haze line, University spires dim and blue through an April haze, was missing entirely from circulating tapes, cut during a disc change decades ago. The original lacquer preserves it in full. Historians authenticate these discs by physically measuring their weight, studying the microgroove cutting pattern specific to 1938 Presto recorders, and even analyzing the frequency response of the era's carbon microphones. This isn't guesswork, it's forensic audio archaeology, and it's finally let us hear Orson Welles' actual, complete performance for the first time in over 80 years. So here's where that leaves us. The mass panic was real, but small and exaggerated. The newspaper coverage was sensationalized for competitive reasons. The definitive academic study behind it was flawed. And even the recording most people have heard for 50 years was edited and incomplete. But none of that makes this broadcast less important. If anything, it makes it more important. It's still studied today as a foundational case study in media literacy, how trust in a format can be exploited, how fear spreads faster than fact-checking, and how a myth, once printed, can outlive the truth by 80 years. Its influence still shows up in modern horror. Shows like Ghost Watch and Late Night with the Devil borrow the exact same trick, telling a fictional story through the trusted format of real, live media. The real legacy of October 30th, 1938 isn't that America panicked. It's that one broadcast proved, permanently, how easily the line between fiction and reality can be blurred, when the format itself is the thing people trust most. Now you know the real story behind the broadcast, what actually happened, what the recordings really prove, and how the panic myth was built. But here's the question this naturally raises: if newspapers could manufacture a media panic in 1938 with nothing but ink and headlines, how does that exact same playbook show up in the misinformation and panic stories we see today? I actually broke that down in a separate video, tracing the direct line from this 1938 broadcast to modern media hoaxes and viral misinformation. If you want to see how little has actually changed in 80 years, click that video on screen right now. So here's where that leaves us. The mass panic was real, but small and exaggerated. The newspaper coverage was sensationalized for competitive reasons. The definitive academic study behind it was flawed. And even the recording most people have heard for 50 years was edited and incomplete. But none of that makes this broadcast less important. If anything, it makes it more important. It's still studied today as a foundational case study in media literacy, how trust in a format can be exploited, how fear spreads faster than fact-checking, and how a myth, once printed, can outlive the truth by 80 years. Its influence still shows up in modern horror. Shows like Ghost Watch and Late Night with the Devil borrow the exact same trick, telling a fictional story through the trusted format of real, live media. The real legacy of October 30th, 1938 isn't that America panicked. It's that one broadcast proved, permanently, how easily the line between fiction and reality can be blurred, when the format itself is the thing people trust most. Now you know the real story behind the broadcast, what actually happened, what the recordings really prove, and how the panic myth was built. But here's the question this naturally raises: if newspapers could manufacture a media panic in 1938 with nothing but ink and headlines, how does that exact same playbook show up in the misinformation and panic stories we see today? I actually broke that down in a separate video, tracing the direct line from this 1938 broadcast to modern media hoaxes and viral misinformation. If you want to see how little has actually changed in 80 years, click that video on screen right now.